Hey everybody, Steve Olson with the Peak Group. I'm glad to be back with you today, and I'm excited to announce that we recorded a podcast with some people that I really respect, the real estate guys, and they're one of the biggest real estate podcasts out there. I recorded an episode it was probably 6 weeks ago with Robert Helms, who's the main show over there. Cool dude. Been to a bunch of their events and spoken at some of them, and I really like what they do. And we recorded this podcast a number of weeks ago, and we're going to roll it out to our list because I think it's worth listening to. And here's why. I have looked at probably 10 land deals this week. They're coming in hot and heavy right now, all over the country right now. People are trying to figure out how to make deals work. They're having to recapitalize deals. You know what's crazy? A lot of these development deals, when it comes to build for rent and barely for owner-occupied properties, a lot of these deals don't work, even if you get the land for free, right? So you got these costs of operating properties and developing them and building them out. And it's still kind of, you look at the number at the end and you go, treasury bills. All right. That's what I'm going to do instead. We're seeing a lot of that. And, building costs have been, stubbornly high. We've seen them relax a little bit in some cases, but then you throw this tariff stuff in there. What is lumber going to cost? What is labor going to cost? What is steel going to cost? It really complicates things. So building prices have been stubbornly high, and I have not yet seen land sellers back off of their 2021, 2022 expectations. Back in 2022, if you were a land seller, you could say, I've got land. Do you want it or not? And you say, well, I want to make sure I can get it entitled and approved. And it just went right over their head. Basically, do you want it or not? I've got people lined up out the door that are willing to pay me an exorbitant price for the land. And it was really hard to make anything work in that instance. So I've seen land sellers come off on terms, meaning they're not going to try to beat you over the head to close in 30 days with or without approvals now. They're typically willing to give you much longer timelines and make those contingent on some kind of municipal approval. There are exceptions to everything, of course. But they really haven't moved much off of the price. And so you look at the building costs are stubbornly high. The land prices are stubbornly high, right? And the cost of capital is much higher now. I would argue that of those three variables, the easiest one to move is going to be the cost of capital, interest rates, right? The Fed and the mortgage markets can move a lot faster than those other two variables, which are very, very complicated and require a lot of time to really unwind. And so you've got capital. You've heard real estate is great. You want to be an investor. We've all heard this saying by Warren Buffett, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. I think I flipped it, but you get the idea. And that's a fun quote when the market is really ripping, when you feel like a genius because you own real estate during an up market with low interest rates. But wow, it gets a lot harder to believe in that and put your money on the line when the market is shaky, when rates are high, when we're not so sure what's going to happen. That's the gut check. That's when it's time to be greedy when others are fearful. And I'm the first to admit that, easier said than done. But what we did in this podcast with Robert is we highlighted kind of how you can be on offense when a lot of other people are in the wait and see mode, because that's oftentimes when the good deals are really made. And we highlighted three things that I've talked about on the show here before, and I'll kind of add a fourth at the end. Consider the BRRRR program, the concierge BRRRR program that we did. If you can get into deals that have respectable cash flow at the end of the day, but you can do it for a lot less cash out of pocket, you're risking less capital. And that's the whole concept of the BRRRR program. We actually have an investor closing on one tomorrow. Great home in Birmingham, Alabama. I think they're into that thing for about 15 grand out of pocket for a single family home. And they're going to get the cash flow that they would have gotten if they put 25% down. So the BRRRR program is a great way to say, hey, I want to be in the market. I want to let the market do its work, but I'm not as comfortable putting a bunch of capital out there. Consider the BRRRR program. Another way, we talked ad nauseum about Dallas-Fort Worth and how much we love that market. But yeah, the brutal truth is the taxes and the insurance make it difficult. People just keep moving there, though. And so I would tell you that if you want to get some exposure to that market, consider Peak's Triple Net Commercial Flex program. We've got a number of units available in Weatherford, which is just outside of Fort Worth. And that's a program where we actually sell you the completed Flex unit. We tenant it and everything, and we guarantee a 6.5 cap rate. So you'll actually have a price on your purchase contract, but once the unit is done and the lease is actually signed and the expenses are all established, we can back into what the 6.5 cap rate is. So you know you're getting that no matter what. So that's a great program because even though it doesn't eliminate your exposure to high taxes and insurance that are in Texas, it minimizes that exposure because those expenses are the tenant's responsibility. So instead of dealing with that, battling that year to year, it just averages out over time and you don't have to absorb those shocks as much. So triple net flex space, which is desperately needed in many markets, including Dallas-Fort Worth, is another way to get a little creative and do deals when a lot of other people are just sitting around waiting for something to happen. That, by the way, might never happen. It might. We don't know. Anyone that tells you that they know is full of it. So that's a second strategy. A third strategy is we all know that the biggest expense that we're going to have in our lifetime are taxes, right? Can we attack taxes? And our duplex program in Fort Worth right now on East Powell is a great way to do this, especially if you have a capital gain, because this duplex project is located in a federal opportunity zone. And for most investors, the only way to participate in a federal opportunity zone is to invest in somebody else's fund. And you give up a whole bunch of control. You're at that fund manager's mercy. The cool thing about doing it this way is you're the boss, but you still get to take advantage of whatever the opportunity zone tax benefits are that you can receive. And for many people, it might mean wiping the slate mostly, if not completely, on your depreciation recapture and on your capital gains. So if you've had a capital gain recently, sale of a business, sale of stock, sale of real estate, the guidelines for taking part in that are much more lenient. You have a lot longer runway than you do with a 1031 exchange, which is the primary method that most people use to minimize their tax liability. So if you can go on offense against your taxes, I would consider calling us about the East Powell project. That's one of 3 ways so far I've highlighted where you can get a little bit more creative in this market that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense right now. We've even got another project we're working on where there's a property tax abatement for a period of time. So while this market starts to figure itself out, can you get a discount on your property taxes? And that's on what's called our investor build program. So I would encourage you to reach out on that as well. So we'll look for that episode. I went into a lot more detail with Robert on the Real Estate Guys. We'll post a link to it on our site, or you can go to realestateguysradio.com. You can see me on there talking about the go on offense when others are playing defense strategy. So I hope this gets you thinking, and I'm not pretending that these are the only ways to be on offense when everybody's on defense, but it hopefully gives you a little bit more of that courage to be greedy when others are fearful, because I get it. The market is weird right now, and I hope the information has been helpful to you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks.